I think as golfers, we've looked at things too much in silos. Even in instruction, we have force plates, we have ground force, we have 3D renderings, we have video capture, and they're all very useful for us as coaches, but each silo thinks that their puzzle pieces are the most important. And I've always looked at it as, can we put all those puzzle pieces together though, and can they be congruent? And that's where I believe part of a mental game coach is bringing those pieces together in a congruent way and prioritizing and understanding day to day my performance could change based on my swing mechanics and my physical fitness and biomechanics and all that stuff, but also our attitude, our focus, our confidence. I can have all those puzzle pieces, but if this one corner, there's a lot of fear going on, I don't think that makes the puzzle work very well together.
Hi, this is Chris Nickel from Denver, Colorado, and I play at Raccoon Creek Golf Course. This is Golf Smarter number 916.
Don't be a golfer that separates their game into silos with Dr. Rick Sessinghaus.
This is Golf Smarter, sharing stories, tips, and insights from great golf minds to help you lower your score and raise your golf IQ. Here's your host, Fred Green.
Welcome back to the Golf Smarter podcast, Rick.
Hey, it's great to be on again. This is awesome.
Yeah, I love having you on because you go in places that we don't need to talk about the golf swing. We don't need to talk about the stroke. We don't need to talk about your hand positions. But we're always getting back to improving your golf game, right? And I just love talking to you about that stuff because you bring new levels of understanding to us on how this all works.
Right. I mean, we've talked about it before, is that I believe golf is a big puzzle, and we have a lot of puzzle pieces to put together. Some people's puzzle pieces of the mechanics probably are very important to learn, and the fitness, the golf fitness and club fitting. And then, of course, I throw in the mental side. There's these pieces that need to be put together. And if they're not put together, we don't quite get closer to our peak performance, as we say.
So if I were to go into the store and there's a box that's like 1,000-piece puzzle on golf, what would the picture be? Would it just be green? And you're just like, what would you make the picture of the golf puzzle?
Wow, what a great question. So wouldn't if we're gonna there's a very basic equation in sports psychology. It's potential minus interference equals performance. Okay. Now, it's hard to measure what our potential is. I get that. But we would agree we don't always get the most out of our golf games. Well, why? There was interference when we played. That interference could be my back hurts because I twisted it. I didn't get a good night's sleep. I don't have much energy. I'm distracted. Or my swing is not a robot, and that day it decided it wanted to slice the ball 60 yards into the trees all day long, right? So that interference. So if we're looking at a puzzle, we would want it to be as simple as possible, right? We want it to be fit together, and maybe it's just like you said, color green, and that's it. It's simple, right? But then I think if we have all these thousands of pieces and they're all over the place and we're trying to fit them together, we try to force pieces to get together when they don't really should be, and then there's chaos ensues. And then so I would go for simplicity of that picture, right?
Keep going.
Oh, okay. So now we have all those.
Take as long as you need.
All those pieces out in front of us, and they may look the same color, right? They're all green, but some of them are bigger, some of them are jagged, and we have to find a way to put them together. I think most people, if they knew these 20 pieces were all about the swing mechanics, would address those first. Oh, I got to put those pieces together first because that's what really matters. I need to hit the golf ball, and I want it to go straight, and I want it to go far. And you remember, I'm a swing coach. I completely agree. When you start the game of golf, you should learn the fundamentals, the foundation for making the ball go fairly straight, fairly get the ball up in the air, and you're now playing golf. But as that puzzle piece gets a little bit bigger and bigger, it's not all about those 20 swing puzzle pieces anymore. There is the fitness element. My body's going to affect how I swing the club day in and day out. Do I want to hit the ball further? Great. I'm going to get stronger. I'm going to get more flexible. I have to address those pieces. And then you get people with club fitting. I got to get the right driver. I got to get that new TaylorMade Stealth because it's going to make me go. Great. Those puzzle pieces are important too. Okay. But I think as golfers, we've looked at things too much in silos. And even in instruction, we have force plates, right? We have ground force, we have 3D renderings, we have video capture, and they're all very useful for us as coaches, but each silo thinks that their puzzle pieces are the most important. And I've always looked at it as that, can we put all those puzzle pieces together though, and can they be congruent? Literally, can they work together? And that's where I believe the mental game, which I know we'll get into, I believe part of a mental game coach is bringing those pieces together in a congruent way, and prioritizing and understanding day to day my performance could change based on my swing mechanics and my physical fitness and biomechanics and all that stuff, but also our attitude, our focus, our confidence. At Flow Code, we talk about taking from somebody from a fear state to a flow state. I can have all those puzzle pieces, but if in this one corner, there's a lot of fear going on, I don't think that makes the puzzle work very well together anymore. I think it actually could make the puzzles now explode, and there we go, the pieces are flying all over the place again.
I love this concept of golf being in silos, because it really is, and we've never discussed it that way, is that there's so many silos of golf, and how well do they communicate with one another? And that, like, I'm sure that you, in your dealing with companies and your motivational speaking and stuff, silos is a regular part of the conversation about how many silos there are that don't communicate well with one another where they should. Golf is really like that.
It is, and we look at the highest level. Obviously, I've been working on the PGA Tour for the last few years, and the teams for these players are getting bigger and bigger, and each coach has a different silo. You can have a putting coach, and you can actually have a wedge coach, and you can have a stat coach, you can have a mental coach, you can have a fitness coach, you can have a swing coach, you have a caddy, you have an agent. Before you know it, you have a lot of silos that, what are they trying to do? They're trying to work together for the player, so that player can be at their best. But, I'm not, and I've witnessed it out on the outside, not from the inside, when those silos either believe that there's the most important one, the other ones don't matter as much, or they blame other silos for the problem. and yet if we were on there for the player, we all have to take responsibility of how do we work together on that.
Yeah, I mean, I could see how the player would have all these silos, team, members, and she would refer to it as my team.
Correct.
But may not have the wherewithal, especially because a lot of tour players are younger and don't have that world experience, not to recognize that they're siloed and that the team is not communicating well with one another, and how that impacts their performance.
Yeah, I mean, I use the word congruency a lot. Is the message congruent? We may have different vocabulary, like the force plate person may have different vocabulary than the mental game coach or the swing coach. Totally get that. But are we congruent with one message that's being brought to the player? And this happens even with your 15 handicap who finally takes a golf lesson for the first time, finally gets club fit for the first time, finally maybe does a couple stretches for the first time. He or she's realizing that the performance has some of these puzzle pieces. Now, they're maybe not as detailed as a tour pro. I get it, but we're working in the right direction to optimize, which is a word that I use a lot, optimize performance. It could be nutrition and sleep habits. There's so many things that are going to help somebody perform at their best. But are they all going in the same direction, right? Are they all having the same message forward? And again, it's an exciting time in golf, to be honest with you, to have so much these silos, the specialty of these coaching, the expertise is unbelievable, of stuff that I'm like, holy smokes, this ground force and this 3D, it's like, people are really, really are experts at these things. It's just helping everybody to click it together.
And how do we break that down to the amateur golfer?
Yeah, I think with the amateur golfer, I always look at, kind of cause and effect relationships. And I do not expect a 15 handicap to know exactly why they're shooting the scores they are. But I believe there's a lot of low-hanging fruit. If I just shot 90, and I can now look at basic stats. I know everybody out there listening, we want to get into strokes gained and all that stuff. That's fine. But the low-hanging fruit is how many fairways how many penalty shots did I have today? How many 3-putts did I have? That's the low-hanging fruit, right? If I had 4 3-putts, I believe anybody can take the 4 3-putts and make them 2 3-putts in a couple weeks if they started to practice. So we have to understand the cause and effect of what is the performance and why. And then if we start asking better questions, we can start looking at, I shot this because of I 3-putted 4 times. Well, was that because of speed control? Was it that my short putts didn't go in? Was it my green reading? Or every time I had a 4-footer, I was scared, and I was nervous, and I got and then I blocked it because, oh my gosh, I don't want to miss this in front of my buddies. They're going to trash talk. If you really know now more of the reason, you can do something with your time to practice and to train. I don't think people ask a deep enough question of why did that performance occur. I think they can look at some of the what, like, oh, my putting's poor. Okay, did you go the next layer down? Was it speed? Was it line? Was it green reading? Was it mindset? Then you can start to identify which, let's admit, we don't have a ton of time to practice. Why don't we make it the most useful we can? So cause and effect relationship, look at low-hanging fruit. And it might be, I have some students that they get to go on their golf trips in the summer, right? And we know that, I get to go to Pinehurst or whatever. And it's the first time they've played 3 days in a row in a long time. And they wonder why on day 3 they didn't play very well because their fitness level wasn't good enough. They were sore that morning. Is that we have to look at there's a lot of different elements to this. But low-hanging fruit, cause and effect, and then there's obviously way too much information out there online. so find a trusted PGA coach, okay? They could probably help you minimize the waste you're going to have when you go down the YouTube rabbit hole.
Well, after 916 episodes, have I gotten to too many coaches? Oh my gosh. All right, we're going to take a break here. We're going to be back right after this. There's so much that we just went through. Let's break down those 3 elements on the putting green alone on where did you go. I love that idea because I don't think that most amateur golfers that I play with really are very good at green reading, let alone speed. And let's break those 3 down.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I look at it if I give a putting a lesson, which I don't do as much. I talk about routines. I certainly talk about mindset going into it, but I used to coach obviously for years and years. And we get to the basics by first off, is the ball starting on your intended line, right? We know club face is at least 93% of that. So we help somebody understand club face relationship, how the hands move it, and we help them with different drills. It could be a string drill, a chalk line, to help them understand line. Then we move into speed, which, let's be honest, does require repetition. It's hand-eye coordination. It's how much energy am I putting into this ball or this to make it go and propel. That does take time. But there's basic concepts of hitting center of the club face, the acceleration rates. We can use metronomes and stuff like that. That's a lot of mechanical stuff, which you do want to drill. And you need to get some repetitions. Green reading is an interesting one. And again, I think a lot has been done in the last 3 to 5 years when it comes to green reading. It used to be the basic, hey, let's look at the high point. Let's look at the low point. Let's pretend we pour water on the green. Where's it going to drain to? Those are observational things, which are certainly a starting point. But we get into aim point. We get aim point express. We get into there's something called tour read out there. I know the inventor of that, where we're now using the phone as a way to measure what's the angles, and we're now using Carpenter levels and stuff. So there's a lot more of, instead of using just your eyes, you're using your feet. So now I can feel slope. I can walk slope. I can walk 360 around it. What I like about it, and I am not an expert on aim point, by the way, but I like that it's getting you more in the present moment. Your eyes are one thing, but if I can feel my feet and go, that feels like a 1 degree, or I feel like, I'm walking downhill, I'm at least in that moment focusing on the putt. I'm not focusing on what it's worth. Oh my gosh, I need to make this par. Oh my gosh, if I don't in the future. So I think some of that green reading, it does help people, but I think it literally grounds them in the present moment to go, what do I have here? What do I see? What do I feel? So that's part of it for sure. Then the fourth part of this, though, is mindset. I can have the greatest putting stroke in the world. I can have great speed. I can have a great read. But we talked about interference. Is there any interference that's going on mentally as I prepare to strike this ball? And it could be a distraction. It could be a doubt. It could be a fear, which now triggers a stress response, right? So under pressure, we use pressure as an interference right now. When I play competitive golf, my response, we have fight or flight. Fight would be I steer the putter. I grab hold of it tighter. The club face stays open. I would miss a lot of putts to the right. Okay, so that was my response. Other people, it's flight. I just want to get this over with. This is uncomfortable. They would tend to hit it hard and hit it left because they're closing the face. That's a stress response. That came from interference of I don't know how to deal with feeling uncomfortable right now, because if I miss this, I'm going to lose this skin, or I'm going to lose this whatever bet I'm with my buddies, and I don't want to do that. That's a threat. And when I have a threat, I don't want it. Now, with flow code, we say, well, let's turn the threat into a challenge. Well, this is challenging. Okay, I got my buddies watching me. They wanted me to miss. Good luck. I'm going to go inside right edge firm. Let's do it, right? Now there's self-talk. There's visualization. There's turning the initial threat, which was a stress response, into a challenge, which is, let's take it on. Let's go. And that mindset alone will help clarify focus to what we want instead of what we don't want, and may minimize the effect it has on us physically, right? Let's think about golf is still a physiological sport. And if I'm stressed, I could tense up muscles. My heart could go faster. I want to get this over with. My tempo, my sequence gets faster. And that's what I like to talk about the most, is that we work on the stroke and, everything looks beautiful. And I'm on all these fancy smancy things that measure, but my face is perfect. But are we really measuring it in the same environment as the 5-footer in front of my buddies who are going to trash talk if I miss it? Probably not. So we need to do a better job of practicing and in an environment that is similar to what we're experiencing when we're in stress. And that's where, again, that fourth stage comes into play. Is green reading, I think, is an art and a science at the same point. It takes practice. It's awareness. Awareness is focus. Awesome. Then once we've made a decision, I'm going to hit this 2 inches outside right edge. It's going to enter at 5 o'clock, and it's going to have drip speed. It's going to barely go in. I've told you exactly where it starts, where it's entering, and at what speed. To me, that's clarification of focus. And then if my last thing is, let's do it, there's self-talk. Now I've aligned all those things back to the puzzle pieces. They're clicked in. But if that one little in the back of my head, oh my gosh, if I miss this, oh my gosh, I'm going to make bogey. If I make bogey, then now I'm gone off to the races, and good luck having the same feel that you had in all of your practice.
Yeah. Just recently, I've just started to understand and get the feel of the feet on the green and standing over and like, oh wait, my left foot is a little bit lower than my right foot. I can feel it in my hips. I can feel my feet. That means the ball's going to go, if my right foot's higher, it's going to go right to left. And it's like, and I talked about aim point years ago when I had them on. But it's now, that's the thing about golf that blows my mind, is the subtleties of it, where you can't just like, I'm just going to become a scratch golfer, which we'll get to later.
Sure you can, Fred. Come on.
I'm not talking about me. So yeah, the feet thing is really fascinating because it is so subtle, but you do have to be in the moment.
Correct. And I think when you play golf for longer, the subtleties and the details, I think, is then what matters the most. right? If I work with a college player, I already know they can hit the ball a mile. I already know they have well beyond basic skill sets. Yet why are they not maybe, again, performing to their potential? And it might be the nuances of, you know what, I never thought about using my feet. And now that I do, I'm more in the moment. And that could click right away. And they're now more committed to a putt. Awesome, right? And that's where I talk about feedback loops a lot, where how quickly can you learn your environment, which is a lot of repetition in different places. But then we call it pattern recognition. How can I now go and recognize, oh, this reminds me of XYZ course 16th hole. Oh, and now we can recall it. We're going to probably make a better decision because we're using our past memory in a positive way to recognize and then make a decision. So feedback loop, learn, and then I get to observe and go, oh, this reminds me of that. I'm going to do this instead. And it just helps. And that's why I said the feet, the nuances. If you pay attention, everybody, you can make adjustments quicker.
Yeah. And also getting the ball started on the right line. If you hit the ball in the center of the face, that's a whole different piece of subtle adjustment and realization that is so critical.
Oh yeah, with every club in your bag. I was giving a lesson the other day and we were using a launch monitor and we're looking at path and club face and all the fancy stuff. But if you don't hit it off the center of the face, you're not going to optimize energy and transfer, and it will affect club face, right? And putting, it's almost all club face. It's almost all club face. So you hit it a little off the toe, it might open the face up. A little off the heel, may close it a little bit. And but we have to be looking at the right things. We talked about asking better questions to understand your performance. And if, that ball went left, but it looks like the club face is fine, then, did I hit it off the center or not, right? Asking proper questions is going to help our learning tremendously.
Yes. Are you familiar with Tim Tucker? Do you know Tim Tucker?
I know the name for sure, yes. Oh, yeah. No, I know who you're talking about. Exactly. Caddy. Yes, of course.
Yeah. Okay. Caddy.
Yes.
Right. And he was on the podcast a while ago. And he said something that blew my mind. And when I've brought it up with other people, they discount it. And yet, to me, it is critically important. And that is, here we are out on the fairway. We pull out our GPS or our rangefinder, right? And go, okay, I've got 130 yards to the pin. So I'm going to pull out, name your club here, right? But then we get onto the green and we just eyeball it. Now we're down into inches, right? Quarter of inches, fractions of inches of that you could miss. And we're not pacing off our putts. We're not getting used to, okay, this one's a 10-footer, this one's a 15-footer, this one is 60 feet, right? It's like, I'm just eyeballing it. Well, how do you get a feel for that? So Tim says that you have to, and what was so cool about it, having him on, is the following week, he went and caddied for Kit Kitayama, right, and they won. Right.
At Bay Hill.
Amazing. Right. And it's like so cool to have him on and then talk about this. And yet the putting really made a big difference. But when I talk about pacing off your putts, and I've done this for years, I count off, okay, this is 7 steps. It's 21 feet. All right. So it's in my head. That's a 20. And I've been there before. I've got a 21. I know what that feels like. Right. But just eyeballing it and thinking, it's all feel. I think
you bring up a good point. Now, I grew up playing other sports before golf, so I felt I had pretty good hand-eye coordination. And when I used to teach a lot of beginners, intermediates, I would put them on the putting green, and I would just say, how far is it from here to that hole? And I would, before they could pace anything off. And it was always fascinating to me is that people's perception of distance is all over the place. Okay. It's 15 feet and we pace it off and it's 22 feet. It's like, that's a big difference, right? Now I'm going to have some people go, yeah, it's 20 feet and it's 19 feet. You go, okay, that's pretty close. But you bring up a good point. You get closer and closer to the hole. It's more and more precise, yet it's almost like we do the opposite on the putting green. Is we go, yeah, it's about 20 and it's about right to left a little bit. And it's like, no. We get more and more detailed. And I think clarity is powerful, right? I'm clear that this is what's happening. My mind can go, great. let's go do it. Now, there's one little part of that makes things challenging on the putting green, which is the speed of the green itself, right? I can have a 20-footer and go play in the U.S. Open at a 13 on the Stimpmeter, and then go play to my local Muni, and it's a 9 on the Stimpmeter. That 20-footer is a heck of a lot different, okay? And that's the adaptability that we come into. But I think having that information starts with the baseline, and then you have to ask other questions after that.
Wow. Another timeout coming up right now. Be right back. All right, Rick, I have to bring this up. We had kind of alluded to it earlier, but I need to talk to you about this because I've been enjoying so much watching you with Jerome Ruffin, who is From Scratch to Scratch, the video channel. We had him on the show when he was just getting started, and he was convinced, like he knew absolutely nothing about golf and wanted to, like, knows nothing and wanted to be a scratch golfer, and he was going to keep creating these videos until he was a scratch golfer. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not so sure. And then you came along and started working with him. I'm just going to open the door. Please, tell me about your experience. Because let me just say, I loved watching the two of you together because I learned so much. And that's what I like about his videos.
Yes.
I'm learning a ton by watching you work with a student.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's getting everything I'm getting from you.
So let me give you just to zoom back out a little bit. So I would say almost every year somebody will reach out to me with a similar concept. I'm a beginner golfer, or I'm an 18 handicap. My dream is to be scratch. My dream is to play on the tour. And that's awesome. I love hearing dreams and goals, right? But I can tell real quickly, one, what are their resources? How committed are they? Those are my two basic questions. Well,
sure.
Up to Jerome, I have never said yes to anybody. Okay.
So, oh, really?
Yeah. So I have never offered my services for some of these, type of things. But Jerome had already begun his journey, right? And I came about probably 4 to 5 months after his journey started, and I had already seen some of his content. I knew who he's working with already, which is really good coaches already. And I'm going, okay. And back to our puzzle pieces. He has a fitness guy, and he had a putting coach, and he's like, okay, he's looking at it the right way. And the work ethic. I go, oh my gosh. And he was athletic. The guy was a basketball player. He's super athletic. He had a lot of speed already, which is sometimes hard to teach as we get older. Not that he's old, but if we don't take up golf when we're 8 to 12 years old, it is a little more challenging from a speed standpoint. And what started off as doing some mental games, some on-course stuff, kind of evolved into some other type of coaching. But I've loved his passion for it, and I think it is the journey he's going on. Again, it's happening very quickly for him because he's doing it every single day. Is what we all as golfers feel, right? We want to get better.
Right.
We're trying to go down different roads. We feel we're committed. We're doing these type of things. So I think the viewer is going to look at some of these things and go, oh yeah, I've been there before. I know what that is. So Jerome and again, I've loved working with him because of his passion. I don't know, because I never asked him how quickly does he think he's going to get to scratch. Okay.
I did.
Okay. Well, what was his answer?
I think he gave himself a 5-year timeline.
Okay. Oh, okay. He did.
I'm like, you have the resources to do this on video every day to okay, great.
So that does recall one of our last sessions that we had together, because us golfers have all felt frustration before, right? So frustration is when our expectations are not met. That's a basic definition. I'm frustrated. I should be doing this better. I should be breaking 100 now. Whatever that should is, that's your expectation. Well,
and as Joe Parent says, then you're shooting all over yourself.
Right. We don't want to should. No shooting. Okay.
No shooting.
So one of our last sessions, I go, Jerome, come on, aren't we enjoying this beautiful game and stuff like that? And you could just tell the steam coming out of his ears, like, this shouldn't be so hard. It's like, dude, you already have broken 90. Okay. You're
Wow.
yeah. So I go, do you understand what that milestone is? And once you've done something in golf, you go, well, yeah, okay, but I got to move on to 85. I got to move on to 80. I got to, whatever that may be, right? We're always looking ahead instead of saying, where have we come? And so I joke with him on the videos, like, oh, come on, patience and all this stuff. But because he's an athlete at heart, with his basketball background, he tries too hard and tries to push too much. And that could be a breakdown a little bit in his learning. There has to be enough, in flow code, we call enough struggle before you get to a flow state. There has to be some struggle. There has to be, and then you can let go and prioritize one thing at a time. He wants to improve everything all at once. I'm like, time out. Okay. So he's learning like all of us as students, right? We want it now. He is putting the work in. So I will tell him that. But there is a journey on this that is going to be 2 steps forward, 1 step back constantly. So when he said, and I'm in his camp, I believe in 5 years he can be. I do. Okay. Because his athleticism and his work ethic. Okay. Like I said, I've had other people come to me. I'm a 40-year-old who, or no, my favorite one is I'm a 45-year-old who is scratch and I want to play on the Champions Tour in 5 years. And I go, okay, you're scratch. So, and how much competitive golf? Well, I don't know, but I'm going to retire when I'm 50. I'm going to go, I go, not to, no chance it's going to happen. No chance. Okay. Right. But here's somebody who's 5 years can go from not touching a club to scratch. And I've seen this. I believe he's going there. Now he's going to go from shooting 90 in one round to shooting 105 back to 9. But he doesn't like the fluctuations that golfers experience all the time. Right. So the fluctuations,
day.
Totally. So that's what he's dealing with right now. And so I'm part mental coach, a little bit of other type of coaching, telling him how to play the game. Because at this point, it has been a lot of skill development, which he needed. He's a beginner. He needs to know how to grip the club. He needs to know. Even I gave him a bunker lesson last time. He goes, oh, that's going to take 2 strokes off my game now. I go, great. So he didn't have some of the skills yet. And yet, and we all know, him breaking 80 would be great. Him breaking 75. But those last 5 to 7 shots, that's a whole year in itself. Right?
Easily.
Exactly. So I try to be that supportive, let's go get him, Ted Lasso coach, let's do it. But then there's the other reality of saying this is a journey here, and there's going to be some bumps along the road where you're going to want to throw the clubs in the lake, and I go, so let's back to what I call feedback loops. Let's shoot your 100 and say what did we learn? What can we move on and go from there? So, again, it's been a lot of fun for me. It's brought me back to working with somebody who's new to the game, because I don't work with really any beginners or intermediate players anymore. And to see his love for it and his questions, and he has so many questions. It's like, wait, today we're supposed to just work on your footwork, and you've already asked me 20 questions that have nothing to do with footwork. So he's just he loves golf and he's passionate about getting better. And we were using the word being naive, right? He's naive to almost how challenging it is. There's a beauty with that, but then there's going to be a reality.
Sure.
There's going to be a reality to that too. So it's been a fun.
Well, there's a childlike naivete that we all can appreciate that we let happen, but then with experience, maintaining that naivete can become a barrier.
Exactly. And that's back to expectation management. And again, he's still obviously young to the sport. It's been 7 months or so like that. And I am going to keep saying, hey, you're doing a great job. But again, we have these unrealistic, I shot 90 that, I should shoot 89 the next time. And then it's like, that's not how this works, No, and then getting on different golf courses and all the different variables that we have. But again, for all those listeners out there, he's had the work ethic, he has the attitude, he pushes himself, but he has a fitness trainer. He's put together a team, and he's shown me day in and day out that he's willing to do the work.
He put together his silos.
There you go. But those silos we're working together. We got those puzzle pieces clicking.
Well, one more break, and we'll find out what's going on with Golf Smarter Mulligans this week, and then more with Rick Sessinghaus right after this. This week on Golf Smarter Mulligans, it's part 2 of our extended conversation with golf course architect Tripp Davis in an episode we call A Longer Course Doesn't Necessarily Mean a Harder Course.
An elevated green with no backdrop to it creates a depth perception problem. And that's one of the things that we always try to play on, subtle things that make the golf course a little more difficult or can challenge the player without making it really more physically difficult. And the more you can challenge a player's ability to feel a shot, the better you can make the golf course interesting to play, but yet not a lot more physically difficult. And elevated greens with no backdrop is one thing. How you position bunkers in a fairway to create depth perception. For instance, if you put a bunker on the short side of a hole and it's a big, long bunker, and you put one just 10 or 15 yards longer on the left side and you make it a smaller bunker, you've created a depth perception issue where that bunker on the left looks like it's miles further out there, and it makes it a little harder to feel a shot. So those are the kind of mad scientist type things that we work on.
That's episode 232 of Golf Smarter Mulligans, part 2, featuring golf course architect Tripp Davis on our podcast Offspring, Golf Smarter Mulligans, being released this Friday morning. This episode was originally a members-only episode from February 2012, so that means this is the first time it's ever been shared with you for free. So, if improving your game with Golf Smarter only once per week isn't enough, then don't miss the chance to get 2 episodes every week with Golf Smarter, the golf podcast that proudly focuses on how to improve your game, not the results or gambling odds for any professional tour, and Golf Smarter Mulligans, episodes from our archives that revisit the best of Golf Smarter. They're both available for free from wherever you're listening right now. Let's talk about your passion, flow code, getting into the flow zone, being in the zone.
Yes. It's back. We've been talking silos and puzzle pieces a lot. And I probably mentioned this in one of my other times I was on the show with you, is I was one of those that thought if I had a perfect golf swing, I would shoot low scores, win tournaments. And unfortunately, I saw that in college that's not how it worked. I had a good looking swing. I hit the ball fairly well, but there was plenty of players who kept beating me over and over again. I was a very average Division I player. And I thought that I was missing something, right? So then I would just keep working harder on the golf swing, but I was working on the wrong puzzle pieces. And so, and I'd have outsiders, coaches and people, other players go, it's not about the swing, Rick. You get frustrated way easily. You can't manage your emotions. That emotions affects your focus. You got to do something about that. Oh, I thought I'm supposed to care out there and I'm supposed to, it's like, no. You're not supposed to slam clubs and be a jerk. And that's what I was. And I didn't realize that was getting in the way of my performance. So that's when I went down the rabbit hole of mental game, went back to school, got a doctorate in applied sports psychology. And then in the last 10 years have gone even deeper in that realm of something called flow or flow states, which was coined by Dr. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who unfortunately passed away a couple years ago, and he was the godfather of flow, and it's part of positive psychology, is basically the study of what makes people excellent. And I always gravitated towards that. Why don't we study what makes people great instead of what's wrong with people? So it's like with a golf swing, right? You want to have a great golf swing. Would you just you look at all the bad swings? You're not going to learn from all the bad. You're going to learn from the great swings, right? And so that's where my interest went down, is positive psychology flow states. Now, in the last 5 years, especially, this particular flow state, which a lot of people used to call the zone, was just very general. Oh, you're in the flow, you're in the zone. And now we know that it's actually has different characteristics that have been measured. Okay, there's neurochemicals. There is brainwave, lowering brainwave. There is actually a signature to this that has been researched. So I go, great. It's not just something, out there, be positive. We know that there's different ways to trigger this. We know that flow follows focus. We were talking about green reading before. You're not going to be in an optimal state if you're distracted. Number one thing, I have to be fully immersed in the present moment. So there's been just wonderful research, and Dr. Csikszentmihalyi and other Martin Seligman, all these great researchers and psychologists started creating these frameworks. And then about 3.5, 4 years ago, business partner and myself came together and created Flow Code with this idea that each of us can create flow differently. Okay. And there's different triggers and different things that we can to get into a flow state. And that, again, it's been proven. So this is stuff that's researched. But how can we now train the mental game of performance, whether it's golf or corporate or life? And there are certain things we can do. And just like the fundamentals of a golf swing, club face and path, it's like there's things now with the mental side. There's focus, my ability to pay attention in the present moment, my belief that I have the that I have the skills to match the challenge in front of me. That's confidence, right? I believe I can actually do what's in front of me. If it's too big of a challenge, oh my gosh, I'm going to be anxious and worried. And if it's too easy of a challenge, I'm going to be bored. We're not going to be in a flow state when we're bored. So we're encouraging people to challenge themselves and up their skills a little bit more. And then the other thing that I love about flow is that the best of the best are in a flow state when they're doing it for just doing its sake. We call it intrinsic reasons. I'm playing golf because I just love playing golf, and I love hearing the ball come off the face with the driver and seeing the white ball against the blue sky, and they just love the experience. Now, the difference would be I play golf for extrinsic reasons. I do it to win tournaments. I want my buddies to tell me I'm a good player. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. Let me get that clear. But somebody gets into a flow state more often because they're doing it for just doing its sake. They just get a lot of reward out of actually doing, in this case, golf, a round of golf. They're more likely to be focused. They're more likely to be calm. They're more likely to be relaxed. Some of the signatures that will happen sometimes when we're in a flow state. So that's what I love, is that we just love life, right? We're doing that. You mentioned childlike. We know that somebody who 0 to 8, children tend to be in a flow state a lot more often than adults. Their critical mind is turned off. If you have them play with Legos, and is that they play with Legos, my son now who's 20, but when he was a kid, he's like, "Oh, Daddy, look at my spaceship." Now, I have a couple options as a parent. I can say, "Grant, that is such a beautiful spaceship. How cool is that? Wow," right? And that would keep him in a flow state because he's creative in imagination. Or I could say, "That looks nothing like a spaceship." Uh-oh, I've now created a critical judgmental voice, and he's going, "Oh, maybe that's not what I thought." That's what happens when they get into school, and as parents, we try to correct them and stuff. And they get out of this creativity, childlike imagination, which is a flow state, and they get into, I'm going to get judged, and what if I do this wrong? And so it pulls them out. We want to get back to childlike. We want to get back to creating golf shots around the trees and swinging, those type of things. So it's a more of a natural state than people think. But as we get older, we get a little more judgmental, and that judgmental pulls us out of being, even I mentioned feedback loop. Learn. Doesn't mean everything's great, but I can't wait to learn. Curiosity is a great way to replace being critical out there. So yes, so I can go on and on because I love this idea of peak performance, and that we have ways to get ourselves into an optimal state, mentally, emotionally, in a physical state. I can do that. We train it. The ball's not moving. So what are you going to do in the next 20, 30 seconds? You can visualize, you can use breathing, you can use your body, you have that choice. But unfortunately, sometimes we're running bad programs and bad habits that, I hate this hole. I made double yesterday. Oh my gosh, right? And and we have to be careful of some of those thought patterns that trigger emotions and get into it. So I'm getting too excited here, Fred. So I got to calm down.
Well, you just helped me realize something. When I was a little kid, I used to draw all the time, and I was pretty good. And then it disappeared. Now I'm understanding, I'm just being too critical. It's like that line wasn't exactly where it should. So I was definitely being too critical on myself. So yeah, thank you. That really helps. I heard somewhere on the internet, the internet.
It's got to be true then.
It's got to be true. No. There was a young woman who's on the LPGA tour, and she was being interviewed on some podcast or something, and she was talking about. I may have brought this up before, and I want your take on it. That she says, when I'm practicing, I really, really care. I really want to improve. I really want to focus on what I'm doing, and I need to care 100%. But when I'm out on the course competing, I got to stop caring. Because if I care too much, I'm overcritical.
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
Thoughts?
I'm going to use slightly different words. The caring part is an interesting one, as I'm going to use the word attached and detached. So how attached are you to the result?
To the outcome. Yep.
Could affect how I feel. If I'm detached, I mean, as golfers, let's say, and I was a pretty good player, but let's say I shot 6 over par on the front 9, which is far higher than I normally would. There might be a part of me that goes, I don't give a crap anymore. It doesn't matter. And then go shoot 2 under on the back. Well, what happened? There was a lack of caring, we could call that, but I was also detached from the outcome. Well, whatever, it's not my day-to-day. And I got back to being a little bit more relaxed. I didn't get attached to what I was going to shoot, so on and so forth. I look at it as that most of us play golf. We want to hit good golf shots. We want to shoot low. So let's not put that away like results don't matter. They do matter. And in order to execute the best shot possible or perform the best shot, it is up to us what we do before the shot. So I do care about my processes, my pre-shot routine, and getting the correct number and making the right decision and visualizing and having good self-talk. That is up to me, because I want to do that to give myself the best opportunity to perform the golf shot that I want. Why? Because I do want to hit it close. I do want to shoot low. I do. Yet when I'm over the ball and I'm going, oh boy, I really need to make par here and don't go in that bunker, that attachment could create enough interference where I get back to a stress response. One other thing on that, which I think is interesting, is is our attitude or our emotional state different in practice than it is play? We could debate this a long time. So in this particular case, I try really, really, really hard in practice and not so much in a tournament. Okay, I can kind of get that. But to me, every time I put a club in my hand, I want to play great golf. So I don't want to differentiate one over the other. I just want that to be my default. Okay. In flow, we call it your flow personality. It's just my default to show up every single day. I want to hit this shot. Oh, I want to hit that shot next week. And be fully present, ready to go. Now, some people would say in practice, you might be more mechanical. You might be more perfectionistic to get something to change the motor pattern. Okay, maybe. But the learning side of, you're going to learn at a much better rate when you are playful and childlike and, I can experiment, I can get creative, than caring too much. So I'm split on the words she uses, but I understand the difference between being attached to something so important and just saying, I've done all I can, wherever the ball goes, where it goes. There's freedom with that, right? I mean, freedom is kind of like, let's play with some freedom and some space instead of constricting, which is I have to do this, and if I don't do that. So that's my answer on that one.
Every recreational golfer can identify with this because of the way that if you're having a bad time, you're having a tough round, you're like, that's it, I don't care anymore. Just forget it. I just don't care. This sucks. I don't ever want to play this game. And you get to the 18th hole and you sink a 40-foot putt. It's like, wait, what just happened? Well, as we said on an episode many years ago, NATO golf, not attached to outcome.
Exactly. I know it's challenging for everybody because we want to play well. I want you to play well. I want you to have the goal to shoot your lowest score ever. But on a shot-by-shot basis, if we're attached to what may or may not happen, it gets in the way of what is in our control. And I want to hit a committed shot where I see a shot tracer and I recall a past shot that was like this. That's all the things that are in my control to give myself the best opportunity to hit that shot and to minimize that interference so we can tap into that potential.
Right. Or the guy who on the first hole he loses a ball, gets a triple on that hole, and the next hole he had a double, and goes, oh, this is just going to be a horrible day. It's like, wait a minute, you've only played 2 holes. We got 16 left. What are you talking about? Let it go, man. It's good. Those are behind you. Okay? Now let's stay where we are and move forward. Talk real quickly about your website and your academy.
Thank you.
Please.
Appreciate it. Yeah, so I still do a little one-on-one coaching. What I'm very passionate about now is Flowcode Golf Academy, flowcode.golf. We have certifications for other coaches. We have a membership. We have a junior academy. We have a lot of things because I do want to spread that the mental game, mental performance is important, not only to play better, but to enjoy the game more, right? And we get into it because we get to play with our friends. We get to be at beautiful places. But sometimes we get locked into just the results. But let's enjoy it more. Guess what? We'll play better golf. So yeah, flowcode.golf for Flowcode Golf Academy.
Thanks so much, Rick. It was great to talk to you again. I love having you on the show.
Thank you, Fred. We'll do it again.
To see and hear the highlights of our interviews, please follow us at Golf Smarter on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. X. For our ongoing posts of videos and articles. The response has been incredible as we're now putting up new content there 5 times each week. It's now time to give a warm thank you to this week's Golf Smarter ambassador, Chris Nickel, from Denver, Colorado. Now, for his effort, Chris chose to receive Tony Manzoni's video for free instead of buying it, just by calling our toll-free Golf Smarter listener line and recording this week's show open. You're invited to be one of our ambassadors too. And when you do, you'll have a choice of a free gift. Check out today's show notes and blog posts to see more and links about each gift you have to choose from. Whether it's Tony's video, a box of Odin X1 balls with the Golf Smarter logo, or a glove and glove storage compartment from redroostergolf.com. So when you write to me with a question, comment, or a suggestion about an upcoming episode, don't be surprised when I write back with an answer and my urging of you to open a future episode. Write to golfsmarterpodcast@gmail.com or click on the Hey Fred button when you visit golfsmarter.com.